This lesson is called I Wish, and what it is a combination of learning how to work with layers and some special effects and special selection tools. So I'm going to show you a little example right here. I'm going to open this guy up. Hopefully it'll open for me. There we go. So this is one I did a while ago. And we're going to do something very similar to this, but as you can see, it sort of has all these different layers. Little bit more faded out in some areas, and it's going to be a combination of layers and special effects on each layer. So that's what we're going for here, and we're going to start by doing this step. Sometimes people think is kind of embarrassing, but it's not that big of a deal. So we're going to start by clicking on Photo Booth, which is a nice little program that comes with your computer. And as soon as of yourself, so here I am, hello. And we don't want to use any of the special effects because we're going to be doing our own special effects with Photoshop. So you're going to be taking a picture of yourself looking like you're wishing to be somewhere else. So get a little theatrical and make sure your whole head is in the space. Don't take a picture like this or like this or like this, because then you won't have your full self. So get your shoulders, your head, your neck. Just simply push the button and look like you're wishing you could go somewhere. Oh, perfect. I look like I just would love to go on vacation. So once you've taken your picture, some people take several pictures before they like theirs. Once you like it, just drag it onto the desktop and close Photo Booth. So we're done with that step. Now we are going to set up our workspace. We are going to start by pulling our picture of ourselves into Photoshop. Okay, and I'm going to drag this a little bit bigger, and we're going to be using double documents. Now this is myself wishing, but I need a picture of where I wish I could go. So I've set up a folder for you called I Wish Places. It's on your desktop. A lot of people want to go finding their own photos, but please use these because they're already the right size. I've tested them all out. The resolution's going to work great. So if you want to kind of shuffle through these, what I recommend is you get into your column mode after you've clicked on that folder, and you click the space bar. It gives you a nice big view. Then you can sort of toggle through and decide which of these lovely locations you wish you could go to. Okay, so lots of choices. It says the name of each place when you are on the picture. So I like Japan. I've always wanted to go there. So I think I'm going to choose Japan. And instead of just opening it, you're going to actually drag it into Photoshop. And let's drag a little space around this one as well. So when you're ready to start, you should have two documents, your place and your picture. Okay. And we're going to start by working on our background for a bit. So let's just kind of put this one front and center. Cover my face up so I'm not right in the way there. Okay, so we're going to do a couple things to the background to get started. I'm going to start by unlocking the layer. Right now there's a little lock on it. If I double click and just hit OK, it's now free for me to manipulate. So I'm going to take all the color out of it first, which is called desaturate. And a lot of the technique we're using today comes from the Image Adjustments menu. So Image Adjustments is very common for us to go to. Image Adjustments, and we're just going to click on Desaturate. So instantly it turns into a black and white photo, and a lot of people need to know this technique just to make things black and white. So now we're going to start putting color back into it, but we're going to just do selective color, so just kind of a monochromatic look. So now we're going to go back to Image Adjustments. Hue and saturation is what we're going to do. So remember, hue are choosing your colors, and saturation is how bright or light you want the color. So it's going to bring up this little dialog box. And the first thing you need to do is, if you are adding color, you have to click the box that says Colorize. So I'm on a bright purple right now. It's a little intense, but I'm going to scale through my hues This is the whole spectrum of color that you can choose from here. And I'm going to go something kind of sepia, kind of brownish orange. It's kind of a soft color here. And saturation is what makes it either lots of color or not a lot of color. So if I went really low, you'd barely see any color. But if I went way too high, it'd probably drive you a little crazy with too bright of color. So I'd go somewhere near the center or a little below the center of that when you choose the hue. Lightness and darkness, we're not going to really change much at all because the picture was already professional to begin with and we don't need to make an adjustment there. So let's hit OK when you're done with that step. So now you've got a nice color option to work with. Now we're going to repeat those steps on your face. Okay, so let's start over here. I'm going to unlock the layer by double clicking and I'm going to go Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. Takes the color away. Now I'm going to go back to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation. Now I don't want to make them match exactly. I probably could, but I think I'm going to go something slightly different. So I'm going to click Colorize. Starts me out on purple, and I'm going to go back down where I was to something on the sepia range, but not exactly the same. And then for saturation, I might bring a little of the color up. Now you'll notice that these pictures are not really high quality. They're just kind of a snapshot. So sometimes adjusting the color can really help. And then I'm going to hit OK. So now I've got two photos that have been desaturated and colors have been adjusted. Okay, now we're going to take this picture and put it over here, but we're going to do it in a really unique way. We're going to be creating what's called a feathered edge. So to feather the edge on this picture, we are going to get our lasso tool, which you're familiar with from our last lesson. But before we start any selection, we're going to change feather up here. Right now it's on 0 pixels. We're going to change it to 35 pixels. And what it's going to do, instead of making a really crisp edge, it's going to make a soft, like kind of a glow around you of the picture. So I'm going to just start dragging around. And notice I'm not even worried about how close I am to my head because there's a feathered edge, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. So I'm going to go all the way around, and I'm going to even go out into the gray space and just go back where I was. Now when I let go, notice it's kind of a bubbly shape. It's not a perfect selection, and that's great. That's what you want. Now we're going to switch to our Move tool, and as I start dragging this, notice it's got sort of a faded edge to it. That's exactly what you wanted. So you're going to click over here and drop yourself off on your place you wish you could go to. And then let's shrink it down a bit. I'm going to go with about 1/3 of the size. I'm going to scale down and hit return. I don't want to be really tiny in the corner so I look like I'm just barely there, and I also don't want to cover up all that background, so just kind of find a happy medium. Okay, now you're going to place yourself somewhere in that document. Now I like this arrangement because I can see up to that pagoda. It's like I'm looking up at the pagoda. But I may try putting myself on this side, and if I'm over here, it looks like I'm looking off the page. So I would want to go Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. Then I'm looking that direction. Now I've kind of decided I liked it way back over here because I liked looking that direction. So I'm just going to go Edit, Undo, Flip, put myself back right over here. Okay, so now we're done with this picture. We can go ahead and close it completely. We don't need it anymore. Now we've got a little cleaning up to do. Notice we've got 2 layers. If I hide this one, that's what I've got. If I show it, I have this. Now I like this little fade out that I have, but I don't like that I can see computers and desks and things behind it. So I can do this 2 ways. I can do it with this one showing or this one not showing. Showing, not showing. So all I'm going to do is get an eraser. Now if I have an eraser that's perfect like this and I start erasing, it kind of takes away that feathered edge. So instead of that kind of eraser, I want to get a faded out eraser, something kind of like this. And I want to actually change the opacity and flow to about 70. And remember, the opacity is how see-through it is. The flow is how fast it comes off the tool. So now if I start kind of erasing just a bit, some of you guys might have people back there. Maybe I was walking behind your desk when you took the photo. So just kind of clean up any odds and ends, but you don't want to do too much or else you'll disappear. So that's just a nice little step, is using your eraser, changing the modes, and just touching up that glowing photo. Okay, I'm putting that back on, and I'm ready for my next step, which is we're going to add another layer between these two. And the layer we're going to add is going to go along with the concept of wishing we could go somewhere else. It's going to be some handwriting that looks like a letter. Now, this one's hopefully easy to find. Let's see if we can just click on Safari. I'm going to type in handwriting. Oops. And hit return. And then I'm just going to click images. And I've used this handwriting before and I know it works really well. So find the handwriting that looks like this. It's kind of nice because it doesn't really say anything specifically. It's just kind of a stock photo. So I'm going to click that. And remember to get full-size image. Okay, and the nice thing about Photoshop is it does like to have things dragged right into it. So once you've got the full-size image, you can just pull that right onto your document. It should cover everything. We can get rid of this now. So everything's covered, and that's because you put your layer right on top of everything. So what I'd like you to do is just slide your layer between yourself and your place. This kind of looks cool already, but we want to see everything. So we're going to take this layer, layer 2, and just slide your opacity down to, oh, I'd say probably about 35 or so. So you can see the handwriting, but you can also see your location. It's kind of a neat little feature for collage effects and things like that to layer things together. All right, so now we're going to do a little bit more here. Now, I hate to make this image too cluttery. Sometimes we do this project and feel like it's just a big pile of text all over the place. But really the whole point of this lesson is to learn some new techniques that you can apply to other assignments eventually. So let's start by getting our T tool. We're going to work with text for a bit. And I'm going to click up in the corner. I just grabbed my T tool. I'm going to click once. Actually, before I do this, let's change our default back to black and white. So click once, and I'm going to type the words, I wish. Okay, now I've got a really techno font going on here, and it doesn't really go with my theme. I think I want something a little more traditional, but still bold. So I'm going to go to my T, and right up here, the nice thing about this is it does show you a preview when you just click on this. And I'm going to go with stencil. Just kind of looks, you know, like your basic stencil of a font. So I've got I wish, and it's basic black. But what I'd like to show you next is how you can take your text and add a layer style to it. This is a really nice thing to do, but a lot of people take it way too far. So don't get too crazy with it. Just make the point is to make your text more readable and more interesting. So we're going to go up to layer style, and I actually just start with drop shadow, and what it does is it pulls up this box, this window, and this window has many different tools in it. It's like a whole nother toolbar coming up for you. Notice it did add a drop shadow to this, and with the drop shadow I have all these options. I can slide this down or up. If I want the distance of the shadow to be further away, I can pull it around. Now, one thing I notice is sometimes people do this and they're right on top of what they're looking at. Make sure you can see what the effect is doing. So I kind of like the drop shadow, but I'm going to try a couple others. So I'm going to try inner shadow. That didn't really do much to it because I haven't changed the colors a bit. But as you start scrolling down, I like outer glow because it sort of sets my text apart from the background a little more. And again, I can change any of these elements, but for now we're just going to keep it simple. Sometimes it's fun to just kind of go through and notice what they do, but I don't recommend ever having text with every single box clicked. It gets really obnoxious, I think. So especially things like when you add a stroke, remember that we've done a lot of work with adding a stroke in Illustrator, and this is how you would do it in Photoshop. You click on stroke, and here's where you'd change your color. So if I wanted the outline of my lettering to be a different color, this is where I would do that. Okay, but I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to uncheck all these boxes that I just did because I really only liked the first couple things. I think I like outer glow and drop shadow, I think are plenty. Outer glow, I could make the spread just a little bit bigger so there's just a little more glow. And then when I'm done, I hit OK. Now the nice thing is if you look over here in your layers, you'll notice that all of the things you just did are listed in that layer, which is really helpful, and I'll tell you why in just a minute here. So I'm going to ask you guys to think of 3 wishes. So I'm going to say, I wish it could be summer all year long. Now, obviously I didn't fit this very well onto the page, so I need to change it to probably something around the 20s would be a good option. Now I can leave the same type style if I want to, or I can change it. I kind of want to make it match this sort of script. So I'm going to go back into my T tool, and I'm going to choose something a little scripty to make it look more like handwriting. So I'm going to look around in here. Don't really have anything too traditional scripty, so I might have to sort of just kind of do something like this, brush script. Okay, so I said I wish it could be summer all year long. I love summer weather, so that's kind of a wish that I'm going to have. And now I'm going to just rotate the text. Remember, whenever you rotate, hit return. And I'm just going to place these kind of around. So do 3 wishes. There's 1. Get my T tool, click again. What else do I wish? I wish I had an avocado tree because they're delicious. Okay, so I'm going to just rotate that so that kind of matches the angle. And I'm going to do 1 more wish. Click and say, I wish I could fly. Okay, and again, we're practicing so that when we start our actual assignments, whoops, see that one I didn't quite have selected carefully. We never want to stretch our text, especially our text and photos. So I'm going to arrange that. Okay, so now I've got my 3 wishes, and I'm going to show you again how to use your layer styles. Now the nice thing over here is if you look at your FX, that stands for effects, and I can hold my option key and just pull right onto the next layer, and it actually mimicked my effect that I've already done. So I do that again, option, and click on the FX and pull that up to this layer, and option again. So if you ever do an effect on a poster and you want to apply it to multiple different types of text, that is a good option for you, is to do it that way. Okay, so I don't want to do too much more to this image because we're getting kind of crowded, but I am going to add a couple little icons, just kind of touch it up at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is click out of everything, and I'm going to get this blob tool. We used this when we finished the last assignment. It's called Custom Shape Tool. Now remember that you have all these options in here. If you don't see all those options, click on this little arrow and click all. And it's going to ask if you really want them all, and you say yes. So I'm going to choose just this little detailed flower. I'm going to come back over onto my document, and I'm just going to hold shift and start dragging, and that little flower is going to appear right in the corner. Now this is creating a vector image. You can see the edges are a little bit strange looking. So what I do, and also notice here if you wanted to change the color, this is where you'd pick any other color you wanted. I'm going to just keep it black, and I need to go layer, rasterize, shape. Now it's just a basic Photoshop layer image. So I have that there, and I'm just going to go option and drag a copy, and I'm going to make one that's smaller, and I'm going to flip it the other way because this is really duplicated, I'm going to go Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal. So now I've got two little guys there. Hit Return once I've made that selection. And I'm actually going to copy those effects to those and see how that looks. So Option Drag to that layer. And I like that, so I'm going to do Option Drag to this layer. Okay, so that wraps up your I Wish demonstration. Hopefully you will have a chance to apply these techniques to something else in the future.